Well, we don't, I mean, if it doesn't go away, it'll stay there. Right now, it's so great. Yes. Really nice to see you in the office. We got back more traffic. Okay.
I learned that harder for me to learn, without the Trump ballot. I can have second problems getting better. So one of these weeks, sign up.
A lot. I don't know. Yeah. Oh, I know, but yeah. I can see you fine. I can see the laptop fine. Something that happened to. I'm just wondering if the audio. I'm sure there's no. I wonder if we get a single stand. Yeah. Single stand down there. Yeah. No. Are those that you might see?
Okay. Okay, here's my book. Anything else?
Well, I mean, I could do the whole
Okay, we got it. Both are fine. Do you have that? Do you have the outline I sent you? You got it, right? Are we okay with the camera now?
We're okay with the camera. I don't know. We may.
Didn't we used to have a portable mic also?
Yeah.
Is that gone?
It's not that it's gone. It's all about what's tapped into the system with Zoom. It's all about Zoom. Yeah. And frankly, right now there's nobody even on. So right, there will likely be. Well, except that I can hear you, but I'm not hearing you through Zoom. I'm just hearing you through the mic. So, but then what happens also is people get on Zoom, they just turn it on, and then they go you can't see them, and I will be emailing people or chatting with them through the thing, and they're like 3 rooms away. They're just.
So is there a problem with you can hear that well?
I think I can see you. Go a little closer. I'm the glass. Sorry. Oh, yes. And they're like embracing and saying, closer, closer. America, and I say that I'm not getting that. There will always people like me.
Was she ever anything else?
Oh, what would mine?
Yeah.
Well, she was a bunch of marks.
I know other marks. She was anything else? I was trying to type after. It's not so heavily identified with the one genre.
Yeah.
Sorry, I forgot.
It's like
we saw this movie. Oh, I know. We saw a movie. The role played the lead in This Made Up.
oh, huh.
And it was a serious drama. And I had a really hard time like accessing the premise, right? Because I just associated so much with being a comedian. That's gotta be a problem for an actor. Yeah.
We're doing our part. Yes.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Every first Friday, June, July, August, and it's the first one where we're actually in town.
Yeah.
We have a way to go the summer years to not be here. We moved here 7 years ago, and the first couple of summers. July, Maryland. She could hear you guys chit-chatting, which was really exciting, but just like.
Over here, right there, Shannon. Well, this is right, this is good. We're changing the,
Morning, Sharon, can you hear me?
Someone go, the door, keep closed the door.
Oh, I just wanted to.
Oh.
We have to step in on the in. Look at those, God's alone. Good morning, he wants him, can't hear.
Have you ever noticed that people upside down like Arabic? I was flipped the wrong way. Everybody's not Arabic, but I'll take your word for it.
Rena?
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Do you hear me?
Sit.
Thumbs up, we need to hear.
Okay.
Okay, so we're ready for takeoff. Everyone, we're gonna take 141, October.
Into the morning blessings, Adonai, on day 1.
Pastor.
231, Psalm 150. Up 241. Great. Trustee Guideline, Mark. Mark, okay. 9:35 on the dot. We good? Okay. So page 142, the first reading, don't get that, it's going to be Shana. Okay, turn to page 142, break below the line. There is a commentary in small print. I'm not sure remind your headsets there. It's not six words, it's actually print. Stephen Sager, which is not, many commentators in the book, Steve Gross. So,
according to the rabbinic tradition, Psalm 104, verses 1 and 2 describes how God, little and slender, wrapped in light, began to create the world. Three thoughts like it. One source says that God found a way to within the world for the creation of the sun, moon, and stars. This meditation invites worshipers to consider the act of founding the Trinity to be the first step in the daily renewal of the world. God's wrapping in light becomes visual and light wrapping at the outset of a new day. It encourages students to celebrate the world's unique creativity and unfailing sign of divine presence.
Name I do not remember. Someone new to Adat Shalom during the holidays, and they were remarking on the canvas that diffused the light in the sanctuary. And when I told them that one of the ideas when this was designed was to essentially mimic the talit, that we have a talit, but there's also a talit that enwraps the entire kahal, the entire congregation. He like took a big deep sigh and say, "Wow, that's so cool." And it is, there are a lot of these things that we may have forgotten, but put in place early on are worth reminding ourselves of every so often. Continue on page 269.
$269 in the middle. המחדש בטובו בכל יום תמיד מעשה וראשית כאמור לעושה אורים גדולים כי לעולם חסדו אור חדש על ציון תאיר ונזכה כולנו במהרה לאורו ברוך אתה אדוני, יוצר המאורות.
273.
עבר בעלתנו, אדוני אלוהינו, חמלה גדולה וצירה, קמלת עלינו. אבינו מלכנו, בעבור אבותינו ואמותינו, שבטחו בך, אבינו מלכנו. ותלמדם חוקי חיים, תן חתוננו תלמדנו. אבינו האב הרחמן, המרחם רחם עלינו. אבינו האב הרחמן, המרחם רחם עלינו. ותן בליבנו להבינו, להשכיל, לשמוע, ללמוד וללמד, לשמור ולעשות, לעשות ולקיים את כל דברי תלמוד תורתך, לשמור ולעשות, לעשות ולקיים את כל דברי תלמוד תורתך באהבה, והאר עינינו בתורתך, ודבק ליבנו במצוותיך, ויחד לבבינו לאהבה וליראה את שמך, ולא נבוש ולא ניכלם ולא ניכשל לעולם ועד, כי בשם קודשך הגדול והנורא בטחנו, נגילה ונשמחה, נגילה ונשמחה בישועתך. והביאנו לשלום מארבע כנפות הארץ, ותוליכנו קוממיות, קוממיות לארצנו. כי אל פועל ישועות אתה, וקרבתנו לשמך הגדול, לשמך הגדול, סלע באמת, סלע באמת, להודות לך וליחדך, וליחדך באהבה. ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל. Page 277. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך.
Take a few moments to read the following paragraphs or commentaries below the line. Do that to ourselves silently, and then we'll join together for the third paragraph of the Shema on 285 in a few moments. I invite you to join together the corners of your talit around your left forefinger as we read on page 25 in the Hebrew and we kiss the tzitzit on the words tzitzit. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe lemor, Daber el bnei Yisrael, v'amarta alehem, v'asu lehem tzitzit, v'kanfei b'gdeihem ledorotam, v'nanu al tzitzit, v'kanaf betil techelet. V'ayal lachem letzitzit, v'utem oto, v'zachartem et kol mitzvot Adonai, v'azitem otam, v'lo taturu acharei levavchem, v'acharei einechem, asher atem zonim achareihem. Lama'an tizkaru v'asitem kol mitzvotai v'tem kedoshim le'Elohechem. Ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem le'Elohim. Ani Adonai Elohechem.
Adonai Elohechem emet.
Right, you turn to page 166, and I will invite Mark Lapo to come up and read the Kavanah below the line.
We are each created in the image of God. When we allow the reflections of our own beings to illuminate the universe, when we understand that we carry God within us, we are closer to doing the work that will eventually perfect the world. When we accept the purity of our own souls and the purity of the souls of others, Tikkun Olam will have been achieved.
We'll continue at the top of page 291.
תהילות ליל עליון, ברוך הוא מבורך, משה ומרים ובני ישראל, לך אנו שירה, בשמחה רבה, ואמרו כולם. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות, אוסף אלה. שירה חדשה שיבחו גאולים, לשמך שפת הים, יחד כולם הודו, והמליכו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. צור ישראל, קומה בעזרת ישראל, ובדחי נאומך, יהודה וישראל, גואלנו, אדוני צבאות שמו, קדוש ישראל, ברוך אתה אדוני, גאל ישראל.
Page 295, Yamida.
אדוני שפתי תפתח ופי יגיד תהילתך. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואמותינו, אלוהי אברהם, אלוהי שרה, אלוהי יצחק, אלוהי רבקה, אלוהי יעקב, אלוהי רחל ואלוהי לאה. האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומל חסדים טובים, וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, רב להושיע, מוריד הטל. מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיה כל חי ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות ובדומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות כל חי. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי כל חי.
303.
נקדש את שמך בעולם כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב על יד נביאך, וקרא זה אל זה ואמר, קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות מלוא כל הארץ כבודו. אז בקול רעש גדול, אדיר וחזק משמיעים קול, מתנסים לעומת צרפים, לעומתם ברוך יאמרו, ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומך מלכנו תופיע, ותמלוך עלינו כי מחכים אנחנו לך. מתי תמלוך בציון, מתי תמלוך בציון, מתי תמלוך בציון, מתי תמלוך בציון, בקרוב בימינו לעולם ועד תשכון. תתגדל ותתקדש בתוך ירושלים עירך, לדור ודור, לדור ודור, ולנצח נצח היא. ועינינו תראנה מלכותך, כדבר האמור בשירי עוזך. ועינינו תראנה מלכותך, כדבר האמור בשירי עוזך. ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהי ציון לדור ודור, הללויה. לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיד גודלך. ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש, קדושתך נקדיש. בשבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד. לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיד גודלך. כי אל מלך גדול וקדוש אתה, וקדוש אתה. כי אל מלך גדול וקדוש אתה, וקדוש אתה. לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיד גודלך. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
Remain standing for the rest of the Amidah, through page 323. At the end, we'll join together in Oseh Shalom.
Page 323. Ose shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru, amen. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ve'al kol yoshvei tevel.
May be seated. Let's turn back to page 309 and join together and sing Yismachu, 309.
Yismechu b'malechutecha, shomrei Shabbat bekorei oneg Shabbat. Yismechu b'malechutecha, shomrei Shabbat bekorei oneg Shabbat. Mekadeshe Shvi Shabbat, Kulam Yisbeu Vitanu Mituvecha Shabbat, Yismechu b'malechutecha, Shomrei Shabbat bekorei oneg Shabbat, Yismechu b'malechutecha. Shomrei Shabbat bekorei oneg Shabbat. V'hashvi'i ratzita bo v'kidashto Shabbat. Chemdat yamim oto karata Shabbat. Yismechu b'malechutecha, Shomrei Shabbat bekorei oneg Shabbat. Yismechu b'malechutecha, Shomrei Shabbat bekorei oneg Shabbat.
Rita, that's called changing the tires while the car is moving, what you just did. Nice job. Thank you for all you do, not just that. Turn to page 743, please. We'll invite Rachel Dick to come up and share a passage from Albert Einstein, 743.
Strange is our situation here upon earth. Each of us comes for a short visit, not knowing why, yet sometimes seeming to divine a purpose. From the standpoint of daily life, however, there is one thing we do know, that we are here for the sake of each other, above all, for those upon whose smile and well-being our own happiness depends, and also for the countless unknown souls with whose fate we are connected by a bond of sympathy. Many times a day, I realize how much my own outer and inner life is built upon the labors of others, both living and dead, and how earnestly I must exert myself in order to give in return as much as I have received and am still receiving.
Do you want to stay up here because you're going to be coming up for a second? Okay. Reader's Cottage, page 381.
יתגדל ויתקדש שם רבה, יעמד דברי חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי כל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב וימרו, אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם ועולמי עלמיה יתברך. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו לאל המין כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה תמירן בעלמה ואמרו
אמן.
תתקבל צלות ההון ובאות ההון דכל בית ישראל קודם אבוהון דבשמיא ואמרו
אמן.
יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו
אמן.
עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ואמרו
Amen. Our Torah service is found on page 383. We'll invite Amy to join Rachel up here on the bema to open the ark. 383.
אין כמוך ואלוהים אדוני ואין כמעשיך מלכותך מלכות כל עולמים וממשלתך בכל דור ודור אדוני מלך אדוני מלך אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד אדוני עוז לעמו ייתן, אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום. אב הרחמים, היטיב ברצונך את ציון. תבנה חומות ירושלים, תבנה חומות ירושלים, כי בך לבד בטחנו, מלך אל רם ונישא, אדון עולמים. Page 385. ויהי בנשוא אהרון, ויאמר משה, הומה אדוני ויפוצו אויביך וינוסו משנאיך מפניך כי מציון תצא תורה כי מציון תצא תורה ודבר אדוני מירושלים, ברוך שנתן תורה תורה, ברוך שנתן תורה תורה, לעמו ישראל בקדושתו. Rachel will lead and and we respond.
Okay.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shema.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo. Gadol Adonai iti, uneromema Shemo yachdav. Lecha Adonai hagedu,
Rava Tiferet, V'hanei Tzachero, Yiko Bashamayim Uvaretz, Yiko Bashamayim Uvaretz, Ama Amlacha, V'hamid Naaseh Lech. Eloheinu v'ishtachavu l'hadom raglav kadoshu. Romemu Adonai Romemu v'ishtachavu l'har kadsho ki kadosh
Adonai Eloheinu Yisrael
Chatu Torah, Torah, Hallelujah. Torah, Hallelujah, Hallelujah. Torah, Hallelujah. Torah, Torah, Hallelujah. Oh my gosh. Lights out. That's okay. The sun's giving a lot of light. I just noted, like, Rachel, Paul says to Rachel, do you want to lead this? So she just stepped up and did it with a beautiful voice. And Rachel, we're going to have to get you up here as a cantor, okay? Okay, there we go. You know, import the talent. We'll do whatever we need to do. I think that's how Barbara Streisand was discovered. She was just like, had a bit part and she blew everyone away and then she got the big role. Okay, thank you, Rachel. So we're in the penultimate Sedra, Parsha, before the end of the 5 books of Moses, Ha'azinu. Next Shabbat would be Vizot HaBracha, which is the final blessing, final Parsha. And this begins Moses' final oration to Bnei Israel, to the children of Israel. It begins, depending on if you've got the old or the new version, either on page 1406 is where we're going to be reading from, although the Parsha starts a couple pages earlier. But I actually want you to open up to take a look because there's some stuff I want to point out. So in the older version, no, in the new one, it starts on 1400 really, 1400. And in the older version, it's on 1561. We're reading just one chapter. The entire Parsha is only one chapter, chapter 32 of the book of Deuteronomy. So I want to ask you, this is kind of like a little bit of a lab piece before the lecture, okay? I want you to take a minute to leaf through 3 or 4 pages and just see what you see, and then give me a little bit of feedback. What are you seeing? This is Moses' final speech, and assuming you have to write a review for next morning, tomorrow's Washington Post or New York Times, okay? What's your review of the speech? All right, I know I have given you a lot of time, but I'm actually going to revise my question because I'm going to ask you a deeper question in a few minutes. Simpler question, give me the headline of your story in tomorrow's paper about the final speech that you were covering for your newspaper, Washington Post, New York Times. What's your headline for this speech to get people to read the article that's going to like step out? Yeah, Bob? God is petulant. Okay, there's one. Okay, another one. God's going to get you. Okay. God 1, people 0. There you go. Okay, we're getting the swing of things. Kate? Moses warns God is on the warpath. Excellent. But Bill? Moses gives the big picture. Interesting. Okay. It's a little more forgiving. David? What's wrong with you people? Don't you get it? That's a catcher. I like that a lot. Okay.
Jewish history is going to be a big mess. Just hold on.
Jewish history will be a big mess. Just hold on. Any other compelling titles?
Focusing on the last verses,
That's your words, not mine. I just said, look, take a look. Give me a headline. Okay, we'll get deeper into it in a second. Any other headlines here? Pay your way in pain. Okay. Okay. So now we got kind of so the sense is now, interestingly enough, there's a lot about communications where they say that any audience, they don't take a lot of detail. They just have, what hits them. I forget who said this. Someone here will remind you that people won't remember what you said, but they'll remember how they felt when you said it. Who said that? Someone famous. It might have been Marshall McLuhan, but I could be wrong. Okay, but it's actually quite insightful. People may forget what you say or said, but they won't forget how they felt when you said it. Okay, so if you're the children of Israel hearing Moses' final speech coming to you before he's going to die or leave the scene, so to speak, the takeaway is what many of you said. Really good titles there. And in fact, if you look at it, Bill, you may have another perspective on it, but to the extent that Moses is trying to summarize what they've gone through together as a people from the time they left Egypt, and Moses was essentially appointed by God to lead the children of Israel out of Egypt and to the land that God promised to Abraham. The tone comes across as pretty harsh. You have the notion that Israel is kind of a bad child. In verse 7, take a look on verse 7. It's only one chapter, so in my book it's 1401. I think it's 1557 in the other version. Remember the days of old, consider the years of ages past. Ask your parent who will inform you, your elders who will tell you. So the fact that God oftentimes is portrayed as a parent, okay, is important. And here it suggests that. And if God is the parent, the children of Israel are the bad children in a sense, okay? Several times during the high holidays, Rabbi Fred made comments about the Avinu Malkeinu, which in our book has also an alternative version, okay? Our sovereign, our king, or what's our alternative? Is something else. Our source, our source, right, is another way to kind of move away from the parent image. But you can't get away from the fact that throughout the 5 books of Moses, God very much is portrayed as the parent and the children of Israel as the wayward children. And so to that extent, Moses' summary may sound harsh, but not a bad summary of what they've gone through, okay? There is one exception. If you look at verses from 10 to 14 is the one soft piece in the oration. Bill, if you saw more than that, you can tell me, but in those 4 verses, you got a little bit more about the eagle who is with its nestlings. There's a thing about feeding the people, with in a way that a lamb would feed its children, milking it, with the milk of the mother, so to speak. That's kind of the only soft spot. But out of some 40 verses or so, those are the only ones I found that were on to the extent that parents try and balance love and discipline. It's kind of out of balance here. You should be aware, and people I think maybe have heard this either firsthand or read about it. Oftentimes when Christians talk about Christianity vis-a-vis Judaism, they'll make the portrayal that the reason we need Christianity is that yours, speaking to Jews, is a God of wrath and punishment, and ours is a God of love. Okay, and it's simplistic, but you hear a lot of that. And again, in the popular mind, people don't get very sophisticated about theology, but big picture, you've got the wrathful God, which is really portrayed here even by Moses. So, you know, if you're thinking about this as a, you know, candidates debate, you know, and Judaism versus Christianity, they've got one of the biggest figures in Jewish history, certainly in the Bible, actually giving quotes which give support to the other side that our God is a wrathful, vengeful God. And then Christianity says we have the God of love, and that's an appealing kind of thing. And that's why Christianity has a lot of popularity. And, you know, and there's the whole argument about Christianity succeeding and taking over from Judaism. This is the evolution of the religion, which started out one way, Judaism, and now we have religion 2.0 with Christianity. It's the new and improved version, so to speak. So and now I want to ask you like 3 big questions, and I'll invite you to kind of jump in on any question that speaks to you, okay? So when you look at this as a source for Jewish theology, the way Jews think about our God and the God of Judaism, okay? How do you react is one question I would have. Second, I would ask is, how would you rate the effectiveness of this speech? If you were Moses's executive coach, okay, and whatever time you spent with him before, the day after, what kind of feedback are you going to give Moses? How effective do you think this speech was for what he's trying to accomplish, okay, in terms of a final send-off to the children of Israel? And the third question, actually, I want you to move to the more personal realm, to the extent that in much of Jewish theology, you've got the parental image. Reflect on the notion of how you have parented over time, vacillating between stern disciplinarian setting the rules and with your children perhaps taking the consequences versus forgiving, loving, do it again, okay? It's okay, everyone makes mistakes, whatever else. And, you know, all of us as parents are going back and forth between those two. How much can we learn from our parenting experience about the theology that we see here in the Parsha of Ha'azinu? So pick your question and jump in here. I'm kind of curious for us to kind of unpack this a little bit. Go ahead, Bob.
Small number of rigid rules. Our mantras to our kids was you need to be gentle with people, plants, animals, and books. Wait, let them, you know, hurt other people or each other, tear our plants apart, and books. You know, but if their rules are messy or whatever, we don't forgive them. So be strict with that, really important, bleeding about others that are not as important.
Okay, nice. I'm actually mindful that we've got a Zoom audience, and I'm wondering, do we not have a handheld right now anymore? Shelley, do you know? Maybe if people can kind of come up towards the mic more, so I don't have. It was a nice, great comment. I can't repeat all of it though. Another hand. Let's come up a little closer here until we find. Dave, you want to come up a little closer? Just for the benefit of the Zoom audience.
It makes me think about who the audience is, what Moses is worried about. And it's a very good speech if you're talking to a certain kind, and what he's worried about is 2 things. He's worried about they're going to come to the land, it's going to be fertile, they're going to have a great time, they're going to grow fat and kick, right? That's the line, you know, like a bull who grows fat and takes for granted. He's worried about them taking for granted, and he's worried about them being loss of humility. Like I'm the one who does all these good things for myself. I'm the one who wins the battles, and I'm this and that. So he's saying you have to appreciate and you have to be humble, and humility is the message here. And he's maybe worried about extremely egotistical people. That's why he's sort of tearing them down and saying, you didn't do all this. God did this. You are the beneficiary of somebody else's action. So don't think it, write it up all to yourself.
Mm-hmm. So if you were Moses' executive coach, you would say, nice job, Moses, you did what you had to do.
No, I'm answering a different question. I'm answering the first question, which is what's the theology? What is
okay. Okay. Others? Yeah. Ken, you want to come up a little bit?
So what always has struck me about this, talking about the presentation and how effective is it?
Yeah.
The language that he uses, I haven't checked the concordance. I think a lot of the words in this song aren't anywhere else. This is not common of the language of the Torah. I don't know if it was common language at the time, but if he's trying to make a point to people and he's using language that they're not used to hearing and that they don't understand, not going to be very effective. Mm-hmm. So maybe he should have had a copy editor on it, or somebody just go over, his word choices. I think it's unusual.
Okay. Any word in particular hits you?
A lot of it.
A lot of it. Yeah. Right. Other comments, reactions? Donald, you want to come up here? We're just being considerate of our Zoom audience.
I'm ready for my close-up, Mr. DeMille. There's a formulation that I think is key to the Jewish people, and if you think about Deuteronomy as an appendix to the other 4 books, sort of a restatement, as some people call it, that formulation is essentially, I've offered my Torah to many people, to all the peoples in the world, and only the Jews have taken it up. And for those who did follow it, I give you in perpetuity the land of Israel. That was the bond that God made with the Jewish people. But not all of them followed it. And you were talking about the presentation takeaways. All they have to do is look at Korah. And that's essentially what he's reminding them about. I deal swiftly and without mercy to those who step over the line, because you people have promised to do this. And when you don't, bad things will happen. And bad things have happened to the Jews. And if you look at the religious reactions to, let's say, the destruction of the temple, they say it's because we were not sufficiently mindful to follow God's commandments. And as to what we would tell our children, I've told my son maybe 3 things. Don't put off to tomorrow what you can do today. Marry a Jewish woman who's wealthy, and vote Democratic. Those are the 3 things.
All right, so just before we go down from your first point. So a word, effectiveness of the speech. How would you assess it?
Well, it's a summary of his life, essentially. These are the things that God and I have talked about, and I think it had to be very effective because we're still here talking about it.
Ooh, interesting measurement of success. Okay. Okay. Anyone else? Yeah, so one of my reactions to this, to answer my own question, is that I sense some bitterness in Moses in the speech. In other words, it really comes across as very harsh, not balanced at all. I don't think it's a bad thing to summarize the experience of the Jewish people, but to be a motivational speaker, which is one of the roles of a leader, and Moses is certainly that. It doesn't strike me as a particularly effective way to motivate going forward. It's a lot more of the rod than the caress, so to speak. And one possibility, just I'm speculating here, is that Moses could be bitter about his fate that he's about to meet, right? I mean, Moses, after all he's gone through, has actually been denied entry into the land of Israel, right? This is his final resting place. He knows that. And this is the speech he gives. So to the extent that he has suffered by a God who may lean more towards vengeful and punishing than forgiving and loving, okay? If he's experiencing that, this may be kind of Moses saying like, I got mine, you guys are getting yours coming to you now also, right? That's another thing going on there. So I'm mindful of that because Moses is very human. I mean, it's nothing if not human in a lot of ways. I was interested in the parenting thing, and I actually did a little bit of homework on parenting, and I found a really nice piece about parenting, which I wish I'd seen 25 years ago, on 4 parenting styles. And this is, I want us to kind of think about this in terms of how God shows up in our biblical story and in Jewish history, right? So in this particular parenting manual, they talk about 4 models of parenting, okay? Permissive, authoritative, neglectful, and authoritarian. And I'll give you a little definition of each. And think about this in terms of this parsha, okay? So the permissive parent, what drives that experience is that the parenting is actually quite child-driven, right? The parent is overindulgent, so they allow kids to get away with a lot of stuff, okay? And the other thing that drives the parent in this what's called permissive style is the parent wants to avoid conflict. If a child is positioning him or herself in a certain way, if you want to put down the rules that come down hard, there's going to be conflict. If you want to avoid conflict, you say, okay, he or she's only a kid, only a child, whatever else, so you let them get away with it. So there's no rules, there's no restraint on the child. That's the permissive style. The authoritative is defined by some clear rules and expectations, open communication between the parent and the child, and where children misbehave, which will always happen, what are the natural consequences? How does the parent lay out, well, Johnny, Sarah, because you did X, this is what's going to happen. This is a natural consequence for what you did, okay? The neglectful parent is pretty much absent. Even when they're present, they're absent. They provide little guidance. They are indifferent to the social and emotional needs of their child. And finally, the authoritarian parent is totally opposite of the permissive parent. As opposed to being child-driven, it's totally parent-driven. So what do the parents want at this time and place? And they set down the rules. There's one-way communication. The only person who has standing to speak and to have agency is the parent. And where rules are broken, set by the parent unilaterally, there's strict punishment, okay? So you might imagine that in this parenting model, they're setting up maybe it's kind of the four sons of the Pesach Seder, or the 4 children, 4 models. In this case, the psychologist who wrote it up comes clearly down on the side of being a authoritative as opposed to an authoritarian parent, this being the second model, with clear rules and expectations, open communication back and forth. So children have a say in what's going on in a relationship, and natural consequences where behavior is adrift. If you take those models and kind of use that as a yardstick for the way God shows up in this Moses speech, I think it's hard not to see God coming down as the authoritarian parent as opposed to the authoritative parent, okay? There's not a lot of, so where are the children of Israel in the story? What is their agency, so to speak? They made some decisions, they've broken some rules, they clearly have violated the covenant from Mount Sinai, okay? But it's pretty much one way. God sets the rules. Just as God set the rules about Moses losing his temper at Meribah, and for striking the rock instead of speaking to it, he's done an entry to the land of Israel, which, from my personal view, seems like a little harsh, given all that he did, in the story and through God. So that's that. I then went to
I didn't bring the book, but the Union of Reformed Judaism published several years ago a women's commentary on the Bible. Has anyone ever seen that? It's a beautiful, beautiful piece of work. It's literally the entire Chumash, and all the commentators, as opposed to the traditional commentators, they're all contemporary feminist women, mostly rabbis, okay? And I always find it to be a kind of a refreshing perspective. And I thought in this parsha in particular, I really want to see where it came down. And among the things that came out in the commentary is, number one, it picks up on one of the primary metaphors that Moses uses for God, and that's not only in this parsha, but throughout the Bible, is the word tzur. Okay, what does tzur mean? It's a rock, okay? So the reaction from this feminist perspective is that, well, what a lousy metaphor for God, okay? A rock is cold, it's not soft, okay? It's unfeeling, and it's somewhat unmovable. I mean, it gives the impression of like, this is where I am, you know, tzur, like Rock of Israel. And even in our prayer book, we oftentimes have God, the adjectives of which we have many in the prayer book is Tzur Yisrael, the Rock of Israel. You'll see that in almost any Siddur, right? So they pick up on that as a metaphor, number one. The other image that comes through a lot in this Ha'azinu Parsha is God wielding the sword. So God as warrior, another metaphor for God that we see not just in Ha'azinu, but throughout the Bible, God as warrior. Now, some would argue, and I've seen this in a lot of traditional commentaries, that in a large, for the centuries following the codification of the Bible, and when you have a lot of commentaries being written, there is the notion that the God of Israel is at war with other gods of other nations, okay? The term that's used for this is, as opposed to monotheism, henotheism, which means that every nation has its own God, okay? And that ultimately, what happens on the world stage in terms of events, world history, okay, is a battle between competing gods, not just competing nations, because those two things are wrapped in one, each nation having its own God. And so when God is actually in a catch-22 here, because on the one hand, you have a lot of Jewish theology saying that if you don't obey the covenant, you will suffer. And how will Israel suffer? Not at the hands of God, but through God's orchestration of world events, he will use other nations to punish you. So the exile of Israel, of the children of Israel from the land of Israel, okay, is essentially God orchestrating history because the Jewish people have broken the covenant, have not followed the mitzvot, and so they lose first to the Babylonians, later to the Romans, they lose the sovereignty, they lose the essential promise of the Bible that God makes to Abraham. And in rabbinic commentaries, they always need to explain every event as orchestrated by God, because the rabbi's first premise is that God runs the show, right? They're saying, well, these nations simply had our God at their back. God was using them as a tool to punish Israel. But the catch-22 is that in a world that sees that the world is at war with each other, nations are at war with each other in conflict, each with his own God, if the Babylonians prevail or if the Romans prevail, doesn't that become evidence that perhaps the God of Israel is subservient to the God of fill in the blank, okay? So there's kind of this theological quandary that is noted by modern commentators saying, like, you can't have it both ways. You can't have it both ways. So the reaction actually in the feminist commentary from URJ, one second, Jeff, is that the notion of God as warrior is deeply flawed and one that we should kind of move away from and avoid. Jeff?
And in her presentation, God is a very positive one. So as someone who could be included on feminine, having a feminine perspective,
Mhm. Yeah. So for those who are on Zoom, Jeff Rubin makes a comment about Tova Spitzer's new book. Tova is a graduate of the Reconstruction College, a rabbi in the Boston area. And she talks a lot about the metaphors used for God. And she doesn't think that rock is such a bad metaphor.
No, I mean, she puts a very positive spin on it. You know, the book is God is here, being acted.
Right. Yeah, David?
Just to add to that, this portion, they talk about the rock that gave birth to you. It's actually like a rock, it's a laboring mother.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't see so many other than the metaphors, but here it is in verse. Here it is in verse 18. It's not like a hard, unmoving stone. And then later, the rock is someone who's protected. And that's either if the rock does protect it or it doesn't protect it. So the rock is not passive, it's an active force. So I don't know if the sword means a rock, but maybe there's some other way to reimagine it because they don't use it in the way you imagine it.
Right. Yeah. So David Sidrasky mentioned verse 18 about where actually it says the rock who begot you. I've got to say, just my reading it, you can have your own opinion, is that it's a metaphor that doesn't work. Doesn't resonate with me that a rock has given birth to us. Very mixed in many ways. So one of the things that the women's commentary that I'm referring to right now, of course, precedes Toba's book, but this rich tradition of feminist theology that goes back several decades now. And a couple of people that they mentioned, number one, we know that it's largely feminists beginning in the 80s and 90s who began to raise up the medieval use of the term Shekhinah, which was actually created by the medieval rabbis, was not a very prominent usage of God until the modern period. And the feminist authors actually found this as one of the better metaphors for God. And today, if you read literature in modern Jewish thinking, whatever else, you'll see a lot of use of Shekhinah as the feminine aspect of God that actually goes into exile with the Jewish people, which is actually quite lovely because to the extent that we have this harsh notion that the two biggest punishments that the children of Israel ever experienced was the exile at the hands of the Babylonians in 586, and then at the hands of the Romans in 70, the Common Era, okay? As opposed to this notion of, be gone with you, wayward children of Israel, okay? And God turning his back, so to speak. You have some aspect of divinity who goes into exile with the children of Israel and is the compassionate presence even in the midst of our exile, which according to some, we are still experiencing right now. So the feminist theologians actually love the Shekhinah image, and you see a lot more of that now than you would have seen 50 years ago for that reason. Two of the better known feminist theologians who get quoted in the commentaries on Ha'azinu, one is Lynn Gottlieb, who's a rabbi out in the Southwest, who defines God as a force that connects all life and represents our longing for wholeness. And Lynn has done a lot of really wonderful pioneering work in this notion of recasting God in a way that's much more sympathetic and accessible for people. And then Marcia Falk, a name you might know because Marcia Falk has authored a whole series of prayer books, most recently Haggadah, by the way, but her work goes back 25, 30 years, where she comes up with all kinds of metaphors for God, which are, again, much more loving, compassionate. Examples being, she loves to use the word Ein HaChayim, God as the wellspring of life, or God as Nishmat Kol Chai, which is actually right out of our prayer book, the breath of all living things. And a third that she uses is God as Nitzitzot HaNefesh, sparks of the inner unseen self, okay? So yes, a la Toba's new book, metaphors are powerful. And going back to the quote, which I think was Marshall McLuhan, about people will forget what you said, but they'll remember how you feel when you said it. Metaphors play a very large role in that. That's one of Tova's main points in her book, okay, is that the metaphors stay with you long after the details of incident A, B, or C are forgotten, okay? And I just kind of want to raise up, we're not going to rewrite Ha'azinu. We've talked about it, we come from a tradition, that being Reconstructionism, that's rewritten parts of the prayer book that offend and don't represent what we actually believe or want to say. No one, including Rabbi Kaplan, thought we would rewrite the Bible, but there is a tradition of kind of looking at the Bible with a level of rigor to understand, like, how does this language play in the way the religion is delivered and experienced by average Jews. And I think Ha'azinu is a great example of a passage which should have been kind of a, if I were a movie producer, or film, or writing of films, I would say, now comes like the really big inspirational speech before Moses dies. Here's a great finish. And frankly, if I got the script, I would say, time for a rewrite. This just does not quite deliver the punch, and maybe that's a really bad metaphor, deliver the impact that you might want to send your people off with after having guided them for 40 years. Bob?
I think you can make a good argument that God here is authoritative and not authoritarian from that point of view, because what happens that's bad is not necessarily a punishment from God.
Mm-hmm.
But they thought of it as a natural consequence.
Okay.
Not following.
So Bob's arguing that you could argue that God, using the 4 models of parenting, that God is more authoritative than authoritarian here, that the children of Israel suffer natural consequences. And what would you do about, would you say that Moses, the decision by God not to allow Moses to enter the land of Israel, is that a natural consequence for hitting a rock instead of speaking to it?
I can only say that incident is sort of an example of other things that are unsaid.
Okay. Okay. So it's complicated. So it's just, with that kind of perspective, I think we should be more mindful of kind of the words, metaphors, images that are being used in the Bible as we read it. And I do think that it's wonderful that we have such a rich tradition of commentaries that actually calls this stuff out. There are other traditions and approaches to Judaism that simply say it is what it is and let's honor it. I think that our tradition has always been to take a bit more rigor to it, and I think that's kind of what I wanted to bring to light as we read these final chapters of the 5 books of Moses. So with this, we'll invite our Torah readers and God buyers to come forward.
Let me add for a second when we're talking about language, and we're talking about the language in Ha'azinu and metaphors and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Like one of the more common line in the Torah is "V'adaber Adonai Moshe lemor." One of the most common lines in Wikipedia is citation needed. So some citations. People will forget what you did and but they'll never forget how you made them feel. Is typically quoted, typically attributed to Maya Angelou. And talking about rock as mother, another Star Trek. If you remember the episode, and Helen again came up with the name of it, The Devil in the Dark, where the Horta, spoiler alert, she's protecting her children. So the rock is protecting the children. So everything comes back to Star Trek. ויעזור ויגן וישל כל הכוסים בו ונאמר אמן. הכל הבגודל ולנצחנו כבוד הטובה. תעמוד חנה בת אברהם ורבקה ויעמדו בנימין בן מלך וליב על העלייה הראשונה. ברוך שנתן תורה לעמו ישראל בקדושתו, ואתם הדבקים בעיני עליכם, חיים כולכם היום. At the end,
We're reading verse 40 on page 1406 or 1560, chapter 2 of Deuteronomy.
Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamvara.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiranu la'avodato v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Amen. כי עשה את שמיים ידי, ואמרתי חי אנוכי לעולם. אם שנותי ורק חרבי, בתוך העז במשפט ידי, אשיב נקם לצרי, ולשונאי אשלם, אשכיר חיצי מדם, וחרבי תאכל בשר. מדם חלב ושביה, מראש פרות אויב. הנינו גויים עמו, כי דם עבדיו יקום. ונקם ישיב לצריו, וכיפר אדמתו עמו.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'hayei olam natan b'tohenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. יעמוד יהודה בן ישראל והודו לעלייה השנייה. We are continuing on verse 44.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher karavanu la'avodato v'notan lanu et torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. ויבוא משה וידבר את כל דברי השירה הזאת בעיני העם, באוזני העם, הוא והושע בן נון, ויכל משה לדבר את כל הדברים האלה על כל ישראל, ויאמר עליהם, שימו ללבכם לכל הדברים אשר אנוכי מעיד בכם היום, אשר תצוום את פניכם לשמור לעשות את כל דברי התורה הזאת, כי לא תברחו מכם, כי הוא חייכם, ודבר הזה האריך הימים על הרמה אשר אתם עוברים את הירדן, שמה לרשתה.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam natan b'tochenu. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Before we close the third Aliyah, we'll take a moment to do a Mishavera for Cholim, prayer for healing. If there's a loved one or yourself you'd like to have a prayer of healing said for, we'll invite you to come forward to step in front of the bima, and we'll do the prayer together. Please. Just a second. If you'd like to say the person from whom you're saying the prayer, please do.
Misheberach Avotenu Mekor HaBracha L'imotenu. Make a source of strength to bless the ones before us. Help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing. And let us say, Amen. Misheberach imotenu Mekor HaBracha L'avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
Wishing you and your loved ones refuah shlema, a full and speedy recovery.
We continue with the maftir reading. Again, if you're in the revised version of the Chumash, it's on 1407, verse 48, and it's verse 48 in the original version as well. Ta'amod Yana bat Avraham v'Sara aliyah maftir.
No, that's not it. Okay, right here.
Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher kirvanu la'avodato v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe b'etzem hayom hazeh lemor alei el har havarim hazeh har nevo asher b'eretz Moav asher al pnei Yericho ure'ei et eretz Canaan asher ani noten livnei Yisrael liachuzah umut bahar asher ata ole shama v'heyasef el amecha ka'asher met Aaron achicha behor hahar v'heyasef el amav Al asher me'altem b'toch b'nei Yisrael b'meimari v'kadesh midbar tzin. No, it's Al asher lo kidashtem oti b'toch b'nei Yisrael ki mineged tireh et haaretz v'shama lo tavo el haaretz asher ani noten livnei Yisrael. Yeah.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Yamod. Mark Solomon? says Mark. For Hamagvia V'Ya'amod, David Kuni Hagolel. Please rise when the Torah is lifted. You can't look and see, you'll see the unusual way that it's written in the Torah.
Vizot HaTorah Asher Samoshe Livnei Bnei Yisrael Api Adonai Yad Moshe. Torah, 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 Tziva Lanu Moshe. Torah, 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 Tziva Lanu Moshe. Torah, 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 Tziva Lanu Moshe. Torah, 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 Tziva Lanu Moshe. May be seated. Hilad Yaakov, Morasha Hilad Yaakov, Morasha Hilad Yaakov, Torah Tziva Lanu Moshe. By the way, when I went back behind the bima to get a chumash, look what I found. This is actually the women's Torah commentary that I use at home. It was right on the shelf. So if anyone's interested in taking a look at it, it's a marvelous piece of scholarship and really a nice counterpoint to a lot of the commentaries that are out there. So it's up here for you to take a look at after services. Let's see. Ellen. That's different than this one. No, that's different than this one. Different. Yeah, different. Not familiar with it. So Kate, you want to come up to the bima? We're on page 433 as we return the Torah to the Aura.
יהללו את שם אדוני, כי נשגב שמו לבדו. הודו על ארץ ושמיים, וירם קרן לעמו. תהילה לכל חסידיו, לבני ישראל עם קרובו. הללויה, הללויה. מזמור לדוד.
Abu Ladonai Kavod Va'oz Abu Ladonai Kavod Shemo Ishtachavu Ladonai Behadra Kodesh. Kol Adonai Ba'koach, Kol Adonai Behadar, Kol Adonai Shover Arazim, Vaishaber Adonai et Arze Halvanon. Kol Adonai Chotev Lavodesh, Kol Adonai Yachil Mihidbar, Yachil Adonai Midbar Kadesh, Kol Adonai Yecholel Ayalot. Adonai Lamabu Yashav. Vayeshev Adonai Melech Leolam, Adonai Oz Le'amo Yitei, Adonai Yevarech et Amo Vayashav.
Page 441. ונכו יאמר שוב אדוני לבנות את ישראל, כי לכתוב נתתי לכם תורתי, אל תעזובו. עץ חיים לי למאחזים בה, ותוכן
Kadesh Yameinu Kekedem. Yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai. May be seated. Please turn to page 443 in Kelohenu.
En Kelohenu, en Kadonenu, en Kemalkenu, en Kemoshienu, mi Elohenu, mi Chadonenu, mi Kemalkenu, mi Kemoshienu, Nodel Elohenu, Nodel Adonenu, Nodel Malkenu, Nodel Moshienu, Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu, Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu.
Please rise to the Aleinu, page 445.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שנתן לנו תורת אמת, וחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו. אנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים, לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגובה מרומים. הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, ידעת היום והשבותה אל לבביך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ ועל הארץ מתחתינו.
Page 449.
כי המלכות שלך היא לא מעט, תמלוך בכבוד, ככתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא, יהיה אדוני אחד. ושמו אחד.
May be seated. We'll take a few moments to remember those who are either in Shloshim, remembering a loved one, or who are marking the Yortzeit, an anniversary of the death of a loved one. Sad to announce that a member of our congregation, Ruth Darmstetter, passed away last night. The funeral will be either Wednesday or Thursday, as well will be Shiva. you'll keep your eye on the news bulletins to get the specific information for that, and we extend our condolences to Ruth's family. We also mark the yahrzeits this week of Bertram Kurland, the father of Stephen Hellman, Joyce Reuben Schiller, the mother of Wilma Wald, Robert Wexler, the father of Susan Wexler, Morris Plaskow, the grandfather of David Ehrenstein, guess the father of Jerry? Is that your father, Jerry? Other side, sorry. Your father-in-law. Bina Fenig, the mother of Gail Fisher, Pauline Goldstein, the mother of Hanina Goldstein, Edward Smith, the grandfather of Donald Kane, Bud Wyckoff, the stepfather of Karen Schneider, David Lazarus, the brother of Elizabeth Wanger, Chris Heyman, sister of Tom Armstrong, Harold Greenwald, the father of Santa Greenwald, Simon Messig, father of Jacqueline Messing, Lawrence Mitnick, the father of Lisa Mitnick, Howard Rubin, the father of Helen Obner, Maddie Venter, the sister of Ron Edelstein, Emma Gelman, the grandmother of Judith Gelman and mother of Norman Gelman, Samuel Cohn, the grandfather of Chuck Konigsberg, Joyce Feldman, the father of Carol Newman, Hildy Darmstadter, the mother of Joel Darmstadter, Dorothy Berger, the great aunt of Michelle Mellinger, Mason Schaefer, the father of Steve Schaefer, Philip Malvin, the father of Phyllis Summers Akos, Caroline Bartol, the mother of Tim Bartol, Rena Constance Fink, the mother of Judy Ehrenstein, and Judy Hirsch, the mother of Adam Hirsch. We invite all those saying Kaddish to please rise for the mourner's Kaddish on page 451. Yitkadal, Yitkadash, Shemei Rabbah, Bioma Divra, Chirutei, Biamlich Malchutei, B'chayechon, Uvimechon, B'chayei, Dechol Beit Yisrael, Bagala, Wizman, Kariv, V'imru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mevorach, V'elam Omeo Maya, Yitbarach, V'yishtabach, V'yitba'ar, V'yitromam, V'yitnaseh, V'yitadar, V'yitaleh, V'yitalal, Shemei Dekudesha, Brichu. Leila min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, tamiran bi'ama v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim alenu v'yakol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav, hu yaseh shalom, alenu v'yakol Yisrael v'yakol yoshvei tevel v'imru amen. We'll invite Mark Clappout to come up and make some announcements for the congregation.
Shabbat Shalom. No, come on. Shabbat Shalom. Okay. It's lovely to see you all. And thank you for those who are joining us in person, remotely, in body or in spirit. And welcome. And we're talking about this last night, since we don't applaud, how do we show our appreciation? How do we amplify jazz hands? And I decided, or somebody suggested last night, it's how high you raise your hand. So thank you very much to our service leader, Paula Lewis, and Rabbi Sid, as always, for your teachings. Thank you for all the participants, Ken Abner and others who joined in today's service. A lot coming up in the coming days, a full Sukkot schedule. If you're available and reasonably handy tomorrow morning, you can help build the sukkah. 10 a.m. meeting out back right here at Adat Shalom. Sukkot festival service, 9:30 Monday morning. I have it on good authority, David Soretsky, that it is the best service of the whole year, he says. Yeah? So be there, and we'll look forward to seeing you there. Other events throughout Sukkot are on the website, including in-person Ma'ariv services at 7:15 on Tuesday, 6:30 if you want to come for dinner, 7:15 on Tuesday in the Sukkah, live in-person Ma'ariv with Cheryl Hurwitz. And since we're a little ahead of schedule, I'll take an opportunity to also plug our Simchat Torah celebrations, culmination of Sukkot, Sunday, October 16th, here, of course. 4 o'clock, we have Sillies in the Sukkah for kids, your grandchildren. If you feel like a silly adult, please feel free to join in that. Contemporaneously with that, we have our klezmer musicians here for a workshop late afternoon. Dinner at 6, and Simchat Torah services with a really exciting group of klezmer guests at 7 p.m. Sunday, October 16th. Let me take a minute to just plug the dinner. I said this last night, and people came up to me afterwards and were quite surprised. Since the beginning of COVID, we have almost 100 new members in our community. Yeah. So, and some of them are back. Hello, thanks for being here. I don't know about you, but my experience in joining Adat Shalom as a new member many years ago involved sitting at the new member table, interacting at the Oneg with a new person who might sit next to me and introduce themselves. All kinds of warmth and love that this community can bring. And in COVID, that's been really challenging. So why am I telling you this? The Simchat Torah dinner is on October 16th at 6 p.m. is a dinner in honor of our new members for the whole community, but specifically, we're going to take this opportunity to really single out and highlight our new members since COVID began. So please be there with open arms to welcome our new members. Shabbat Shalom. Oh, and sorry, Oneg after services. Thank you to our Oneg crew led by Shelly Sadowski.
Mark, you took a page right out of my Calendar sermon, like bringing us some good news. So thank you. 100 new members, that's amazing since COVID. I didn't know that. Beautiful. Thanks for sharing that. Why don't we turn to 459, Adon Olam. Choose your melody. Choose your ending.
Adon Olam asher malach בטרם כל יציר נברא, לעת נשא בחפצו כל, אזי מלך שמו נקרא. אדון עולם אשר מלך, בטרם כל יציר נברא, לעת נשא בחפצו כל, אזי מלך שמו נקרא. יאללה לי לה לי לי לי, יאללה לי לה לי 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 לי, לה לי 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 לי, יאללה לי לה לי לי לי, יאללה לי לה לי 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 לי, לה לי 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 לי. ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא, והוא היה והוא הווה והוא יהיה בתפארה. אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא, לעת נשא בחפצו כל, אזי מלך שמו נקרא. והוא אחד ואין שני, להמשילו להכבירה, בלי ראשית, בלי תכלית, ולא העוז והמשרה. אדון עולם אשר מלך, בטרם כל יציר נברא, לעת נשא בחפצו כל, אזי מלך שמו נקרא. והוא אלי וחי גואלי, וצור חבלי בעת צרה, והוא ניסי ומנוס לי, מנת כוסי ביום אקרא. אדון עולם אשר מלך, בכרם כה יציר נברא, לעת נשא בחפצו כל, אזי מלך שמו נקרא. בידו הפקיד רוחי, ועת תישן ואירה, ואם רוחי הביאתי, אדוני לי ולא יירא. אדון עולם אשר מלך, בטרם כה יציר נברא, עת נשא בחפצו כל, אזי מלך שמו נקרא. יאללה לי לה לי לי לי, יאללה לי לה לי 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 לי, יאללה לי לה לי לי לי, יאללה לי לה לי 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 לי.
So as we stand for a Kiddush, let me just add my thank yous to Mark Clappo for ushering and kind of taking care of stuff today, to Paula, who's my right-hand chazanit, and Rena Milchberg, who's abandoned her station now, but has been behind the scene Wizard of Oz, making everything happen. Thank you, Rena. Yes. Okay, please rise for Kiddush and Moses.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי 6 ימים עשה אדוני, עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת באי נפש, שבת באי נפש, שבת באי נפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. סברי חבריי,
לחיים.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, בורא פרי הגפן.
Amen. Join me, please. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz b'te'avon.
Yom huledet sameach, Yom huledet sameach, Yom huledet sameach. Rabbi said, Yom huledet sameach.
Can we do Ma'af Hayom now? Thank you. Ma'af Hayom, Shabbat Shalom. Ma'af Hayom, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom.
I'm in denial. Thank you. Thank you. So who put the bird out to you?
Barb Richmond texted me this morning.
All right. I know. Is it a good place?
Shabbat shalom to all Zoomers, boomers or otherwise. Anybody want to schmooze a bit or go take Shabbat naps instead?
Hey, Steve, I always like your big holla behind you.
Yeah.
We're just so proud of Paula.
Oh, she's amazing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Amazing.
It's great to see people step forward in the congregation and help and bring their gifts.
Mm-hmm. And we're so lucky we can do it all the way from Madison, Wisconsin to Cavell.
Oh, very nice. Very nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Have the leaves changed and have a nice fall trees up there?
They're going pretty fast. They're quite beautiful. Yeah.
We're just starting to experience it here in the DC area.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was out on my kayak yesterday and enjoying a few early leaves that are changing.
Where were you kayaking?
Yesterday was just on a little lake in the Fairfax County called Lake Accotink. If you know it, it's just it's the closest destination for me in the Arlington Falls Church neighborhood where I live, other than the Potomac. And I generally shy away from the Potomac because there's just too many planes and noise and everything. And I like to get into quiet spots. So I often will go to Mason Neck State Park, which is a bald eagle preserve, which I love.
Really?
Which has like 50 or so eagles that are resident year round. And that's down near Lorton off of 95, which is not too far if traffic is not bad. There, or the Occoquan River, which is also very nice.
Another of God's miracles, the beauty of the world. So I'm going to say Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you for dialing in and enjoying.
Thank you
our pleasure.
for recognizing Paula.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I'm in Bethesda, and we never go over the Potomac, so I'd like to hear about it.
Oh, you don't like to cross state lines, eh?
I would like to cross the state line and hear the names of all of these, again, the names of the
water, the bodies of water.
Write this down. Let me figure out where I can write this down.
Well, Mason Neck State Park is Virginia State Park. It's one of the gems of this area that I often tell people about because they're not aware we have a national refuge for bald eagles right in our our local vicinity. And it's a gorgeous park, and they do rent kayaks and canoes, or at least they did the last time I checked, and also just have nice walks and all that. But
tell me how to spell that. I don't know how to spell it.
Yeah,
well,
right.
it's like George Mason, Mason Neck State Park,
Mason.
and it's right. George Mason's home, or one of his homes, is nearby there. And it's a nice little peninsula that you wouldn't know you're in anywhere close to an urban area once you get in that park.
Okay. And how far is that from DC?
Well, again, if you're coming from, a lot has to do with time of day, and if you have the flexibility to go midday, like I do in my semi-retirement,
Right.
it's no more than 30 minutes, 25, 30 minutes down. It's 95 south to Lorton, and it's the Lorton exit off of 95 south, and then a long drive out on the peninsula.
That's so good to know about. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Well, I've come over to the Patuxent River as well, which is very nice there in Maryland, and I was just looking at some other spots. But I try to alternate. Yesterday was a kayak. Today or the day before will typically be a bike ride, and we have such nice bike trails in this area.
Yeah.
Some that run along the Potomac and give you great scenes. Senna, what is it that we're seeing? A giraffe?
I don't know how to get rid of it.
No, that's all right. We don't see you, but we see.
I know. I want to see me, and I can't get the giraffe gone. He's an actual photo.
Ah, I see. And it's not. It's not just your background picture?
It is a background picture, but I don't know. I mean, he's a photo.
Right, I see. Well, just like mine's a photo of a holla, but I have the camera pointing also at my face, so that's why
I can't eliminate him. I love him.
Okay,
I like giraffes. I have a thing about giraffes, but
oh, you do, huh? Have you been up close and personal with any?
not really. That was my goal. But then I had all my back issues and I couldn't go on the African safari. But the funny story about this is that I got hurt and I slashed my forehead open. And can you hear me? Somebody just
yes. Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
And I was getting sewn up, and this doctor whose goal every year is to take an African safari, and I knew these were photos. So I said, do you have copies of the photos? I'd love to buy one from you. And he said, I'm retiring. I'll give it to you, which was so nice. So now I have this photo of a giraffe.
Very nice. Well, now there's a silhouette of you on the so it looks like we've got a little bit of both your camera.
A smile. I look like the Wicked Witch of the West.
Yeah. The smile. Yeah, it's like a black and white silhouette of your face.
But how do I kind of get rid of the giraffe picture every time I'm in it?
So if you go down to the bottom left where you can click on the where it says stop video, and there's a little camera right next to where the microphone is. There's a little carrot, I'm
on iPad.
Oh,
does that make a difference?
If you're using Zoom, I don't think so. I mean, if you move your cursor down to the lower left, do you see mic and stop video with a little camera, a little icon? You don't?
No, I may have to go back to, no.
Well, it's all right. Somebody else will help you if you have somebody else in the house with your iPad sometime.
Good to talk to everyone. I'll talk to you next time.
Okay, bye. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Yes, everyone. I think I will go and enjoy a college football game. My kids' school, University of Virginia, is playing.
Oh, wow.
But where are you located, Senna?
Who?
You, Senna.
Oh, me. I thought you thought my kids were playing.
Oh, no.
I'm located at the Grosvenor.
At the Grove, okay. Is that close to the Grosvenor Metro stop?
And it's close to the Grosvenor Market, which is the best market ever. Yes, it's close to the Grosvenor Metro stop.
Okay. Do they have challas like the one behind me?
They have better challas up at, I can't remember what it's called, but it's not that far away. Great Harvest.
Oh, Great Harvest. That's my favorite. We have
that place.
We have one we go to in Alexandria. That's our go-to spot.
Well, you go to you live in the dreaded Virginia.
The what?
You live in the dreaded Virginia.
Well, you know, there are more Jews in Northern Virginia than there are in the Maryland suburbs. Did you know that?
I'm sure. I just always get lost.
Oh, well, nowadays, most of us rely on GPS in the car.
Exactly.
That kind of thing. Unfortunately, it means that not too many people are skilled in reading a map anymore or figuring out things on their own. They just follow the guidance of the voice in the box. So
well, I just feel a sense of fear coming over me, and that's it. I remember one time coming back from a Shiva, and I was so lost. And all I could think was, if I don't, and it was getting darker and darker, if I don't find my way out of here soon, I'm going to pull into the nearest hotel and spend the night and start over in the morning.
It always used to be that back in the day when you get lost, you pull into a gas station, you ask somebody there, but I don't know if anybody knows how to give directions anymore anyway.
They don't, or at least the gas stations I went into.
Yeah.
It's very sad.
But you know, I wonder, for me to get to, for example, to get to Adat Shalom on a day like today where there's not, rush hour traffic, I could get there in 17 minutes from where I live.
Wow.
It's just right across. I mean, I'm right off of 66. And I could get up to the Beltway and across the American Legion Bridge. So I find that a lot of Maryland members of Adat Shalom find that that takes them longer to get to the synagogue than some of us Virginians.
Well, there's always a joke about Virginians don't like to come to Maryland and Marylanders don't like to go to, that was back in the day.
Yeah, right. Well, there's so many little treasures, I'd say, and both the state parks and the museums and whatever that one finds, and across the river, so to speak. So I like to. In fact, I rode my bike from here to the botanical gardens, the ones that are up in the Northeast DC along the Anacostia. I forget, but when the water lilies were in bloom a couple months ago. It's just a lovely ride. But I think I will sign off and go get some lunch.
I'm going to go get something to eat. I'm always hungry. That's the one thing the pandemic has not been kind to my body. I just keep eating and eating and eating, and especially ice cream.
Oh boy! Now you're creating a desire in my mind.
Oh, there's a wonderful ice cream place that's practically like 4 miles from, not even. And somebody said, "Have you been there more than once?" And I said, "Of course. I have to make sure I really like it, so I have to go in many, many, many times." And Phyllis Lerner had written that you read about that. I tried that ice cream. I had to. It was a rule, my rule.
Yeah. Well, go and enjoy some of that if you can. And Joyce, I think I just heard the weather forecast. It's supposed to be quite nice between now and at least through Tuesday or Wednesday.
Oh, wow. I thought it
today is a little brisk, but it'll warm up a bit. Tomorrow will be even nicer, and Monday and Tuesday, at least from what I see, look very nice. So it'd be nice for walks or however one gets out and gets around.
That's exercise.
Right.
Okay. And what was the name of the park again?
Oh, the one that I mentioned with the bald
Yes,
eagle?
that one. Yes.
Just like George Mason, Mason Neck, MASON, Mason Neck State Park. And it's within the Virginia State Park system.
Well, I got that far. That's what sort of caused me to forget Mason Neck. I mean, I don't mean momentarily.
Yeah, it's worth knowing about. Of course, there are eagles that are around the whole area, but they have, a very nice visitor center and very friendly people down there, and some nice, just easy walks around the grounds and views of the Potomac from one and from this back bay from another. So, okay, well, Shabbat Shalom.
And you too. And I'll see you as all the young people. See you next time, which is obvious. I'll see you next time. Oh, well.
Indeed. I'll look forward to your giraffe.
Okay. Thank you.